Hey warriors, welcome back to the channel. You ever notice how the people getting promoted aren't the ones working hardest? The person who got that opportunity you deserved, they're not more qualified than you. The person who landed that deal, got that introduction, accessed that room you can't get into, they're not smarter than you. But here's what they have that you don't: a single phone call to the right person, one relationship with someone powerful, one connection that opens doors you're still knocking on. And while you've been grinding, perfecting your skills, building your resume, proving your worth, they've been having lunch with the decision maker. They told you that hard work would be rewarded, that talent rises to the top, that if you're just good enough, qualified enough, dedicated enough, success will come, and you believed it, so you worked harder than everyone around you. You built skills, you delivered results, you outperformed people who got promoted past you, and you kept waiting for someone to notice, for someone to recognize your value, for merit to finally matter. But here's what nobody told you: the people deciding who gets opportunities aren't looking at merit, they're looking at their network. They're promoting people they know, they're choosing people who've been recommended by someone they trust. They're opening doors for people who've been in the room where your name never even came up. And you're not even on their radar. Not because you're not good enough, because you're not connected enough. Machiavelli understood something that destroys talented people. Merit without access is invisible, and access isn't earned through hard work. It's engineered through strategic relationships with powerful people. Stay till the end, because I'm about to show you the 13 laws for building connections with the people who actually control your upward mobility, and why everything you've been doing to earn your way up has been keeping you locked out. Let me show you exactly how this works. You're talented, you're hardworking, you're producing excellent results in your current position, and you assume that excellence will be noticed by someone above you, that your boss will advocate for you, that decision makers will see your value and elevate you. But here's what's actually happening: the CEO doesn't know you exist. The VP has never heard your name. The board member who could change your career with one introduction has no idea who you are, and they never will. Not because you're not doing great work, because great work without a relationship to someone powerful is just invisible excellence. Meanwhile, there's someone else, less qualified than you, less experienced, producing mediocre results. But they have something you don't. They met the VP at a conference 3 years ago. They had a conversation. They followed up strategically. They provided value in a small way. They stayed on the radar. And when an opportunity came up, when the VP needed to recommend someone, your name wasn't even in consideration, because you weren't in relationship. You were just a name on an org chart, and names on org charts don't get elevated. People in relationship with power do. This is the game. This is how it actually works. And you can resent it, you can call it unfair, call it nepotism, call it who you know over what you know, or you can learn to play it. Because resentment doesn't open doors, strategy does. And the strategy is simple. You must engineer relationships with powerful people, not through networking events where you awkwardly exchange business cards, not through LinkedIn messages that get ignored, through strategic, deliberate, value-driven relationship architecture that makes powerful people want you in their orbit. Machiavelli wrote, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him." Translation: powerful people are judged by who they associate with, which means they're selective, which means you don't get access by asking for it. You get access by making yourself valuable enough that they choose you. And that requires understanding the 13 laws. Before we dive into the laws, understand this: everything you've been taught about networking is wrong. You've been told to be yourself, to build authentic relationships, to add value without expecting anything in return. And all of that sounds nice, but it doesn't work with powerful people, because powerful people don't have time for authenticity projects. They don't have bandwidth for relationships that don't serve them. They don't invest in people who can't provide strategic value. So you need to stop thinking about networking and start thinking about strategic relationship engineering. You're not making friends, you're building access to power, and access requires strategy, not sincerity. If you're ready to learn how the real game is played, how people actually ascend through strategic relationships instead of waiting to be discovered, subscribe now, because what comes next are the 13 laws that separate people who stay stuck from people who engineer access to rooms where decisions are made. Law 1. Proximity is power. Engineer situational access. You can't build a relationship with someone you never encounter. Obvious, right? But most people never engineer proximity. They hope to randomly meet powerful people at events. They wait for chance encounters. They assume that if they're meant to connect with someone influential, the universe will arrange it. Wrong. You engineer proximity deliberately. You research where powerful people in your industry spend time, what conferences they attend, what organizations they're involved with, what causes they support, what problems they're trying to solve, and then you show up there, not as a supplicant asking for access, as someone who belongs in that space. Example, you want access to a particular executive. You find out they're on the board of a local non-profit. You don't ask them for coffee. You volunteer for that non-profit. You become valuable to the organization. You solve problems. You make yourself visible in that ecosystem, and eventually you're in the room with that executive, not as someone asking for their time, as someone contributing to something they care about. That's engineered proximity. That's strategic positioning. Law 2. Solve their problem before they know your name. Powerful people are drowning in asks. Everyone wants something from them. Introductions, advice, funding, opportunities. They're exhausted by people who lead with what they need. So you do the opposite. You lead with what you can provide. You identify a problem they have, something specific, something you can actually solve, and you solve it before you ever ask for anything. You provide value without immediate expectation of return. Not because you're being generous, because you're being strategic. You're demonstrating capability before requesting relationship. Example, you identify an executive who's trying to enter a new market. You have expertise in that market. You don't email them asking to pick their brain. You create a detailed analysis of that market, competitors, opportunities, risks, and you send it to them with no ask attached. Just saw you're exploring this space, thought this analysis might be useful. You've just provided value. You've demonstrated competence. You've made it easy for them to respond. And when they do respond, you're not starting from zero. You're starting from, this person can help me. Law 3. Become the bridge they need. Powerful people need access to other powerful people. They need introductions. They need intelligence about markets, competitors, opportunities. If you can position yourself as someone who connects dots, they can't connect alone. You become valuable. You become the bridge. And bridges get crossed repeatedly. This means you need to build your own network strategically, not just upward to powerful people, but laterally across domains. Because the more connections you have, the more valuable you are as a connector. Example, you meet a CEO who's trying to expand into healthcare. You don't work in healthcare, but you know 3 people who do. You make those introductions. You facilitate connections that create value for them. You've just become useful beyond your primary skill set. You're now someone who can open doors for them. And people who open doors for powerful people get kept around. Law 4. Master the 2-minute impression. When you do get proximity to powerful people, you have minutes, sometimes seconds, to make an impression that determines whether they'll invest in knowing you further. Most people waste this time with small talk or nervous self-promotion. You don't. You come prepared with something specific and valuable, an insight about their business, an introduction you can offer, a question that demonstrates you understand their world at a level most people don't. You're not trying to tell them your life story. You're trying to make them think, this person operates at a level I respect. Example, you're at an event. You get introduced to a senior executive. You have 2 minutes. Bad approach. I'd love to pick your brain about your career path. Good approach. I saw your company's expanding into the European market. I spent 3 years there and noticed your main competitor is using a distribution strategy that might be worth understanding. Happy to share what I learned, if it's useful. You've demonstrated domain expertise. You've shown you understand their business, and you've offered value. That's a 2-minute impression that creates follow-up opportunity. Law 5. Never ask for general help. Ask for specific action. Powerful people ignore vague requests. Can I pick your brain? Gets deleted. Would you be willing to mentor me? Goes nowhere. But specific, bounded requests that make it easy for them to say yes. Those get responses. You don't ask for their time. You ask for a specific introduction to one person. You don't ask for advice. You ask for feedback on one specific decision. You make it clear what you're asking for, why you're asking them specifically, and how long it will take. You remove all friction from helping you. Example, bad email. I'd love to learn from your experience in scaling companies. Do you have time for a call? Good email. I'm deciding between 2 growth strategies for my startup. Given your experience scaling, would you be willing to spend 15 minutes giving me feedback on which approach you'd prioritize? I'll send the 1-page summary in advance. The second is specific, bounded, and demonstrates you value their time. It gets answered. Law 6. Demonstrate ROI on their investment in you. When a powerful person does help you, makes an introduction, gives advice, opens a door, they're investing their reputation. They're saying to someone else, this person is worth your time. If you waste that opportunity, you've burned that relationship and probably damaged theirs. So you treat every piece of help from a powerful person as a test. You execute flawlessly on whatever they give you. You report back on outcomes. You make them look good for having helped you. Because if helping you creates positive outcomes for them, if you make them look smart for having invested in you, they'll invest again and again. Example, an executive makes an introduction for you. You don't just send a thank you note. You follow up after the meeting with results. The introduction led to, thank you for making that connection. It's already creating value. You've just shown them that their investment in you paid off. Next time you ask for help, they'll remember that you execute. Law 7. Provide exclusive value others can't. You're competing with hundreds of people trying to access the same powerful individuals. Why should they choose to invest in relationship with you over anyone else? Because you can provide something others can't. This could be unique expertise in a niche they need, access to a demographic they're trying to reach, intelligence about a market they're entering, a skill that solves a specific problem they have. Whatever it is, you need to be able to answer the question, what can I provide to this person that they can't easily get elsewhere? If you can't answer that, you're not ready to pursue that relationship yet. Example, you want access to a venture capital partner. You can't compete on deal flow. They have plenty of that. But you have deep expertise in a specific emerging technology they're interested in but don't understand deeply. That's your unique value. You become their expert on that technology. You send them relevant insights. You help them evaluate deals in that space. You've created a reason for them to stay connected to you that's based on exclusive value you provide. If this framework is changing how you see relationship building with powerful people, hit that like button. It tells me you're seeing the strategic game, and it helps this reach others who are still trying to network their way to access that never comes. Law 8. Leverage weak ties strategically. You don't need to become best friends with powerful people. You need to be in their extended network. Research shows that most opportunities come not from close friends, but from weak ties, people you know casually who operate in different circles. A powerful person who remembers you from one meaningful interaction can create more opportunity than a close friend with no power. So you don't try to force deep relationships with everyone. You focus on creating memorable, valuable interactions that put you in the mental Rolodex of people who might be able to help you years later. Example: you meet a senior leader at a conference, you have one good conversation. You don't try to immediately turn this into monthly coffee meetings. You stay on their radar strategically, sending them relevant articles every few months, commenting thoughtfully on their LinkedIn posts, showing up at events where they'll be. You're maintaining a weak tie. And 3 years later, when they hear about an opportunity that fits your profile, your name comes to mind. That's weak tie leverage. Law 9. Understand their incentive structure. Powerful people make decisions based on incentives. They invest in relationships that serve their goals. If you don't understand what they're trying to achieve, what their quarterly objectives are, what their career ambitions are, what problems keep them up at night, you can't position yourself as valuable to them. So you research, you understand their world, you know what metrics they're judged on, you know what challenges they're facing, and you position your value in terms of their incentives, not your needs. Example: you want to build a relationship with a VP of sales. Their incentive structure, they're measured on revenue growth and team performance. You position yourself as someone who can help with one of those. Maybe you have insights into a market segment they're trying to penetrate. Maybe you can help recruit sales talent. Whatever it is, you frame your value in terms of what helps them hit their numbers, not what helps you get promoted, their incentives, always. Law 10. Create mutual obligation through strategic favor exchange. Relationships with powerful people aren't one-directional. You can't just keep asking for help. You need to create situations where they ask you for help too, where they feel like they owe you something. This sounds counterintuitive. How can you create obligation with someone more powerful than you? By being useful in domains where power doesn't matter. Maybe you have a specific skill they need. Maybe you can solve a personal problem they have. Maybe you can make an introduction for them. Whatever it is, you find ways to help them so the relationship becomes reciprocal, not supplicant. Example: you discover that a powerful executive is trying to hire for a niche role and struggling to find candidates. You happen to know someone perfect for that role. You make the introduction. You just created obligation. You help them with something they needed. Now when you need something, the relationship isn't one-sided, it's reciprocal. Law 11. Position yourself in rooms where decisions are made. Most important decisions happen in rooms you're not in. Strategy gets set in executive meetings. Opportunities get discussed in boardrooms. Your name gets brought up or doesn't in conversations you'll never hear. So your goal isn't just to build relationships with powerful people. It's to become someone who gets invited into those rooms. This requires demonstrating that you can operate at that level, that you understand strategy, that you can be trusted with sensitive information, that you add value to high-level discussions. You do this by contributing strategically in lower-stakes situations and gradually earning trust to be in higher-stakes ones. Example: you're invited to a planning meeting. Most people in that meeting stay quiet or only speak when spoken to. You don't. You come prepared with strategic insights. You ask questions that demonstrate systems-level thinking. You contribute in ways that make the meeting better. And afterward, the senior person running that meeting thinks, this person operates at a higher level than their title suggests. Next time there's a strategic conversation, you get invited. You've earned access to rooms through demonstrated capability. Law 12. Manage their perception continuously. Powerful people don't have time to know you deeply. They judge you based on limited data points. What they see, what they hear about you, what impression you make in brief interactions. So you must manage those impressions deliberately. This means controlling your professional reputation, ensuring that when your name comes up, the narrative is what you want it to be. This isn't about being fake. It's about being strategic about what you emphasize, what you showcase, and what story the limited data points tell about you. Example: You want to be known as someone who executes flawlessly. So every interaction with powerful people, every project you deliver, every communication you send, it's polished, it's on time, it's thorough. You're building a reputation, and reputation is what determines whether powerful people think of you when opportunities arise. You're managing perception by making every data point reinforce the narrative you want. Law 13, play the long game, invest before you need it. The worst time to try to build a relationship with a powerful person is when you desperately need something from them, because desperation shows, and powerful people avoid desperate people. So you build relationships before you need them. You invest in proximity, in providing value, in creating mutual obligation, years before you need those relationships to pay off. This requires patience. This requires investing time and energy in relationships that may not have immediate return. But this is how you build real access, not transactional connections you activate when you need something. Real relationships that exist independent of immediate need. Example, you identify 5 powerful people in your industry you want relationships with. You don't wait until you need a job to reach out. You start now. You provide value. You stay on their radar. You create touch points, so that 3 years from now, when you do need something, you're not cold emailing a stranger. You're reaching out to someone who already knows you, who already has positive associations with your name, who already sees you as someone worth helping. That's long-game relationship building. These are the 13 laws. These are how you engineer access to powerful people. Not through hoping to be discovered, not through authentic networking, through strategic relationship architecture that positions you as valuable to people who control the opportunities you want. Now let me show you how to implement this as a system. You start by mapping your power network gaps. Who are the 10 most powerful people in your industry or domain that you need relationships with? Write their names down. Now audit your current access to them. Do you have direct relationships? Indirect connections through mutual contacts? No connection at all? This shows you where you need to engineer proximity. For each person, identify where do they spend time? What problems are they solving? What value could you provide? This becomes your targeting strategy. Next, you engineer proximity systematically. For each target, create a plan for how you'll get into the same spaces they're in. This might mean joining organizations they're involved with, attending events they speak at, contributing to causes they care about, showing up in ecosystems where they operate. You're not stalking, you're being strategic about where you invest your time and presence, because you can't build relationships with people you never encounter. Once you have proximity, you execute the value-first approach. You don't lead with asks, you lead with provides. You identify specific ways you can help them. You deliver value without immediate expectation of return. You demonstrate capability. You make yourself useful. And then, only then, do you begin to ask for small, specific things that allow them to help you without significant cost to them. As relationships develop, you maintain them strategically. You don't become clingy or needy. You stay on the radar through periodic value adds. You send relevant articles. You make useful introductions. You show up when they're speaking or being honored. You maintain weak ties that can be activated when needed. You're playing the long game, building a network that compounds over time. And here's what happens when you do this right. Opportunities start coming to you instead of you chasing them, because you're in relationship with people who think of you when opportunities arise. You're in rooms where decisions are made. You're on the radar of people who can change your trajectory with one endorsement. And suddenly, the meritocracy that never worked for you, it doesn't matter anymore, because you've bypassed it entirely through strategic relationships with people who control access to what you want. Let me show you what this looks like in practice. You're mid-career. You're talented but stuck. You identify that the real bottleneck isn't your skills, it's that the people making decisions about your career don't know you exist. So you identify 3 executives who control opportunities in your domain. You research them. You discover one is trying to solve a specific problem in a market you know well. You create a detailed analysis of that problem and send it to them with no ask attached. They respond. You provide more value. You stay on their radar. 6 months later, they're looking to fill a role. Your name comes up, not because you applied, because you're in relationship. That's the power of strategic access. Or you're an entrepreneur trying to raise capital. You identify 10 investors who invest in your space. Instead of cold emailing pitch decks, you spend 6 months becoming valuable to their portfolio companies. You provide free consulting, you make introductions, you solve problems, you become known in their ecosystem, and when you're ready to raise, you're not a stranger sending a cold pitch. You're someone they already know, creates value, someone their portfolio companies vouch for, someone who's already demonstrated capability in their world. That's engineered access, creating funding opportunity. Or you're trying to change industries. You identify leaders in the industry you want to enter. You start attending industry events. You contribute to industry publications. You solve problems for people in that industry without asking for jobs. You become known as someone who understands the space. And when you're ready to make the jump, you have 5 people who can vouch for you, who can make introductions, who can say, I know this person doesn't have traditional background in our industry, but they've demonstrated they understand it better than most people who do. That's relationship-based career transition. This is how it works. This is how people actually ascend, not through merit alone, through merit plus strategic relationships with powerful people who can deploy that merit in ways that create opportunity. And you can resent this reality. You can call it unfair. You can stay bitter about the fact that it's who you know. Or you can learn to engineer who you know, can learn to build strategic relationships that give you access to rooms, opportunities, and elevation that merit alone will never provide. Machiavelli understood that the prince is judged by the quality of advisors around him, which means powerful people curate their circles carefully, which means getting into those circles requires strategy, requires providing value, requires demonstrating that you enhance their status, solve their problems, and create outcomes that make them look good. That's not manipulation. That's understanding how power-based relationships actually work. And once you understand it, you can engineer it. Now let me address what you're probably thinking. This sounds transactional. This sounds like using people. This sounds manipulative, and maybe it is. But here's the question. Is it more manipulative than the system that keeps talented people stuck because they don't have access to powerful advocates? Is it more unfair than watching less qualified people ascend because they happen to know someone? The game is already being played. You didn't make the rules, but you can choose to learn them and play strategically, or you can keep pretending that merit alone matters while watching others bypass you through relationships you don't have. Here's the reality. Every successful person you admire got where they are partly through relationships with powerful people who helped them. They had advocates, they had mentors, they had people who opened doors. Maybe those relationships formed organically. Maybe they engineered them strategically. Doesn't matter. What matters is that they had them and you don't. And you can either keep waiting for those relationships to happen to you organically, or you can start engineering them deliberately. And when you do engineer them, when you start building strategic relationships with powerful people, you're not just creating opportunity for yourself, you're creating the ability to help others. Because once you have access to power, you become the bridge for people who don't. You become the person who can make introductions, who can advocate for talented people who deserve opportunities, who can use your access to create access for others. That's not selfish. That's how change actually happens. Not through individual merit, through networks of people who help each other access opportunities. So stop resenting that relationships matter. Start building them. Stop waiting to be discovered. Start engineering proximity to people who can discover you. Stop hoping your work speaks for itself. Start building relationships with people whose endorsement makes your work impossible to ignore. Stop playing the meritocracy game that doesn't exist at the top. Start playing the relationship game that determines who actually ascends. The 13 laws aren't about being fake. They're about being strategic. They're not about manipulation. They're about understanding how power-based relationships actually work and positioning yourself accordingly. They're not about using people. They're about creating mutual value with people who can help you and who you can help in return. And once you master these laws, once you engineer relationships with powerful people strategically, instead of hoping they'll happen organically, you bypass every meritocratic bottleneck that's been keeping you stuck. You can be the most talented person in the room, the hardest working, the most qualified. But if you're not in relationship with the people who decide who gets opportunities, your talent is invisible. Your hard work is unnoticed. Your qualifications are irrelevant. Because decisions aren't made based on spreadsheets of merit. They're made based on who powerful people know, trust, and want to help. And if you're not in that network, you don't exist. Not because you're not good enough, because you're not connected enough. So build the connections, engineer the access, provide the value, create the relationships, play the long game, and watch how opportunities that used to require years of grinding suddenly appear through one conversation with the right person. Watch how doors that used to be locked suddenly open because someone powerful vouches for you. Watch how elevation that used to seem impossible suddenly becomes inevitable because you're in rooms where decisions are made. This is the game. These are the rules. Machiavelli wrote them 500 years ago, and they're still true today. The powerful are judged by who they surround themselves with, which means they choose their circles strategically, which means you must position yourself strategically to be chosen, which means merit matters, but access to powerful people who can deploy your merit matters infinitely more. If you're ready to stop being invisible to the people who control your opportunities and start engineering strategic access to power, subscribe and turn on notifications. This channel is for people who understand that talent without access is just invisible excellence. Drop a comment telling me which of the 13 laws you're implementing first. Share this with someone who's still grinding alone, hoping someone will notice their merit. Because the people who win aren't the ones who work hardest. They're the ones who work strategically on building relationships with people who can multiply their work's impact. Master the 13 laws, engineer the relationships, build the access, and never again watch less qualified people ascend past you while you wait to be discovered. Because discovery doesn't happen through merit alone. It happens through strategic relationships with people powerful enough to discover you, endorse you, and elevate you. That's reality. That's power. That's how you win. Welcome to the real game. Now play it.